Someone comes and says, hey, look, we've got 250,000 euros. We want to spend this growing our business. Where do I spend it? And as you start to kind of delve into that, we start to see these guys are seeing some in the region of 700 different data files every week. So it's understanding, okay, well, what does your data say about what you're doing at the moment? And what does that mean for you as you move forward in the future? Welcome to Let's Talk Payments, the podcast where we interview payment experts about different topics. My name is David from eFlow. We help merchants across the whole world finding reliable and sustainable payment solutions. And today it's an honor to welcome Nick Dobson. Thanks for being with us. Pleasure. Nick is CEO of Unetix, and we're talking today about payment intelligence. Nick, before we move into the details, can you explain me a bit about your history, your background?
Yes, sure. So as we said, Nick Dobson, I've been in payments for all my life, unfortunately, for my sins. So over 2 decades, started off more technically orientated and graduated more into more kind of commercial product focused roles. I'd say probably my last 10 years have been sat working within acquiring and kind of bridging that gap between acquiring technology, looking at how that fits with gateways, orchestrators, but also that core acquiring solution as well. That's kind of led me over a couple of different journeys to where we've kind of come to with Unetix, which is an area of payment intelligence which I'm pretty passionate about, to be honest.
So am I. Speaking of payments intelligence, what should people think of when they say that?
So it's an interesting question. So I guess for those unfamiliar with it, or the way that it's been traditionally viewed, is payment data has been looked at very kind of a static view. So for me, payment intelligence is starting to look at that from a forward-thinking motion, helping people understand that data and the same data, but how does that help them understand what's going on now, but also influence how they grow their business and look to make the right decisions about growing their business or making other decisions within their business to move forward.
So there was a moment that you realized payments intelligence, that is a gap in the market. Something needs to be built.
Yeah, so myself and my fellow co-founders, I think we've been working in the industry for quite a while. We've got backgrounds that cover risk, commercial, product focused, as I mentioned before. And I think we started to see a consistent engagement and message back from customers in the market. And a lot of this can be defined by some of the questions that they're asking of, okay, how do I get a better view? How do I get a single view of all my data? What we'd start to see is as the industry is matured and grown, lots of merchants and customers now are using multiple providers. So that might be multiple PSPs, multiple acquirers, third-party fraud and chargeback vendors. And actually, whilst they all provide really great solutions, they're not quite all gelled into each other. And therefore, there's a lot of challenge for those businesses to really understand that single view. And the way I like to vision it is this sort of single transactional kind of life cycle. Every transaction has a journey, whether that starts at auth and finishes at a refund, or that starts at an auth and goes through a fraud and chargeback route. Everyone has a kind of a journey, and that can start and be lasting one day. That could take 6 months. And merchants understanding that, again, it's becoming progressively hard to really see that view. So the passion of where we kind of came from was really starting to help those customers answer that. And then you start to delve into it and saying, right, well, how do I understand what's the next market for me? How do I grow into the next sector? Why do I suddenly have a spike in chargebacks here? What's driving that? What's my fraud rate in this industry? And starting to understand that down to the deeper issuer level is something that I think is underutilized, and where Unetix is focusing on helping those customers.
So help me understand, merchants do a lot of things to improve their checkout experience, to improve their customer service, to improve, in cases of a physical product, their order delivery. It seems like a basic functionality to also understand data behind payments, especially them working with large financial institutions. What makes it so complex and so difficult?
I think it's, as I mentioned this before, that scale of there's so many different providers within there. We've been working with a couple of kind of pre-launch customers at the moment where, and it's great. It's a great example where they're not particularly a complex business. They've got 5 kind of different units within the business. Each of those have got a couple of acquirers, depending on the market that they're operating in. They're then using a third-party chargeback fraud provider to give them a single view around that. And as you start to kind of delve into that, we start to see that these guys are seeing some in the region of 700 different data files every week.
Wow.
And it's unmanageable, really. I mean, look, these guys are great at running their own businesses. They've created e-commerce industries. They're great at customer acquisition. They've got the great funnels, but they're not payment experts. And that complexity is just keep on growing. And you also then start to see that each individual supplier all talks a different language. There's really little consistency within the market. So your Adyen has a completely different file format or way of communicating to your Stripe. That likewise goes for some of the others as well, your Barclaycards and your Lloyds. They're all completely different. And therefore, me as a customer, every time I look to add something new, it's a complete re-engineering of what I do. And therefore, there's that lack of consistency to really understand what that means. So that's the first part that we're starting to kind of look at, that clarity piece, helping them have a single view. We take all of that away. It's that kind of no code environment. We expect people to be able to come in, link their data source. We've done all the hard work. We do all that mapping. We've got the consistency in it. We do the one-to-many approach. And then allow them to start understanding that. But that's only just where the power begins. Then you start to look at, instantly, well, what can I see? Is there simple decisions that I can make based on what the data I've seen? And now I've got this single view. Am I getting best authorizations rates for this particular card through this issuer with this acquirer for my MCC? Really those granular levels. So there are those kind of quick wins where you can look at it and go, right, well, if we were just to put that over there and that over there, we can optimize acceptance and grow revenue and hopefully save some costs and improve that customer experience. I think the second bit that really starts to excite me now is that predictive side of, well, what does it look like in 3 months' time? And one of the biggest questions I've always wanted to answer is, someone comes and says, hey, well, look, we've got 250,000 euros. We want to spend this growing our business. Where do I spend it? Like, what's going to give me the best ROI? Do I target customers in France? Or is it customers in the UK? Often people will look at those the top line metrics and go, hey, we get a better conversion in France, but they're not then looking at, well, what's the deeper detail in that? So, am I losing 20% of that revenue because I get higher fraud and chargeback or non-delivery in that market? So being able to get into that real detail of what's actually the return on investment for that. Those are sort of the really nice questions that we're looking to help customers understand, not just now, but in the future.
Do you think that merchants also lack visibility of costs they might not even be aware of because of the lack of clarity in data?
Yeah, it's a real issue, I think. And I think data drives that to a level, but I think there's also a lack of visibility of cost throughout and understanding that baseline cost as well. So look, reconciliation is one small part, I think, of the journey. While super important, getting the money in your bank and make sure it arrives, but actually getting it in the most cost-effective way is also really important. But also, there's a whole journey further up the chain in payments intelligence, which doesn't just start with what's the cheapest way to process it. It comes down to where am I most likely to get authorization what's going to be the path of least resistance to improve my customer experience. So cost is super important in there. And again, as it can be that certain markets you're getting escalating chargebacks, excessive scheme fees based on the demographic and the traffic that's kind of coming through. So being able to see that, understand that, and then make the right decisions of what to do with that is the bread and butter of what we're looking to do.
Why haven't acquirers not thought about developing such a product before themselves? I guess it's not the first time that merchants complain about lack of visibility or lack of clarity.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, look, traditional dashboards by PSPs and acquirers, they show you what's happening, but it's kind of a view of the data now. It's kind of the nuts and bolts. This is what's happened and this is where it is. They're not helping out on understanding the why. The other side of things is we don't just kind of aggregate that data, we normalize it. So we're bringing it in from multiple different sources and giving a very consistent view. As I mentioned before, every acquirer, and I've spent some work recently I've probably looked at 150 data files in the last few months. There's not one that is the same, with same structure, same naming format, even the classifications of the data within it. It's all slightly different. So that's a minefield both for existing customers and acquirers. I guess you also look at it as only acquirers know what they know of their own environment. So we're able to get a kind of an independent, wider view of that data environment, and that gives greater value to the customer because it's not just that single line view of what's going on within that single provider.
Does it threaten potentially the relationship between merchants and acquirers as well?
Good question. I don't think it threatens it. I think it should improve it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps everyone be accountable in that life cycle. And it should ensure that those merchants are getting best value for what they should from the relationships they get. And acquirers should be striving to deliver that value as well. So I think what it does is it gives everybody the visibility in the market to be better. And in theory, should be a kind of rising of the seas to make everybody better at what they do. And that
like a win-win.
Yeah, would be everyone in the ecosystem is striving to be better, striving to do it, and using data to drive that up.
Is Unetix then mostly focusing on simply increasing visibility, or on increasing intelligence, potentially automation of stuff? So what's the biggest focus?
Good question. And I think we're looking at the whole piece together. For me, there's kind of multiple components to what we're looking to do. And it's that consolidation initially of the payments from multiple sources into a way that merchants can understand and then make the right decisions. Again, it's those questions of, what's the next best market for me? Am I performing as well as I should do at the moment? So the whole idea of what we've got is it allows us to create a benchmarking in an index as well. So one of the core things within the platform will be a kind of anonymous benchmarking. So I'll never be able to know what David's business does, but you know what, I might run, I'll have an MCC code. I work in a certain market. I work with certain issuers. I have certain acquirers. How do I know that my acceptance rate of 85% is good for me?
And today you have no clue.
And no clue. I've got nothing to benchmark and do it there. So what we want to be able to do is give that ability to say, well, what is good and what is bad? And therefore you have that context to be able to go, right, okay, well, how do I then improve that? What's driving that to be? Is it an issuer in Germany with Visa cards that seems to be causing issues for a certain acquirer? It might be a MasterCard through a French acquirer that's causing me issues. It might not even be authorization. It might be slightly excessive fraud rates. It could even come down to you've got a poor end of kind of customer journey delivery kind of service, where you're seeing a spike in undelivered items, which was driving kind of and that could be a specific country. So being able to kind of get right into that detail will help me as a business to be better, to create better customer experience, but also that, optimize my business and make sure that I'm getting best value for the ecosystem.
Yeah. And as a client of Unetix, help me understand, how would that work if I process with 10 acquirers in jurisdictions you might have never heard of, or you don't have any integration? Do I need to do a lot of efforts myself to make these integrations happening, or how does it exactly work?
No, so one of the core things that we know is integral to what Unetix does is it's a no-code approach. We don't expect our customers to have to do anything. Simple linking of the data source. So part of what we've created is the ability, regardless of who your data provider is, whether existing or new, we can add and map that in nearly instantly. So you could come and say, hey, we want to work with this provider in Portugal. We can ingest that data and map that within 5 minutes. So have you up and running probably within an hour with your data within the dashboards. So the whole idea, no coding, no nothing. And what we're also seeing is there's lots more API integrations now. So we're able to automate a lot of that as kind of things go through. And again, it's really important to us. So being able to do that, why? Because it allows us to get the best data. So we know that Unetix only works where the integrity of the data is paramount.
I was about to address that.
Okay. Question, no segue.
Because it would probably be a question of potential clients, right? How to make sure that your data is actually the right one? How do you validate it?
Yeah, so again, look, integrity of data is super important. So there's for me, there's two elements to that. First of all, we've approached this with payments people. We've been living this for 40 odd years, combined years between the leadership team. We've been through PCI and all those sorts of things. So we ensure that the data that we collect and hold is done at a bank level security, and we know that's critical. The other part of it is then, it's secure, but it's also making sure that the integrity of data is correct. That's the super bit. So again, it's making sure that, we're matching the transactions right. I mentioned before about this life cycle of a transaction journey. So we need to make sure that, the authorization that happened 3 months ago is now linked with the fraud event that's just happened and potentially the likely chargeback that's about to come through. So it gives you that single view. That's where the complexity of what we've done is coming in, to ensure that there is 100% accuracy in that integrity, but also the methods to go, we're not quite, give the customer the ability to go, right, these ones haven't quite automatically matched, and give them the ability to build those together and make sure that that data is correct, because we know that is the core piece about, what we're looking to do. And the other thing, again, I guess, we wanted to put across is, we're looking to firmly remain independent here. We're not linked to any acquirers or any PSPs. And the reason behind that is it gives them that, there's no hidden agenda. We just want to show apples for apples. This is what's going on. This is what's happening in your business. There's no influence from someone's getting, a revenue share from here, or, I get a better margin from something on this business if that traffic goes over here. We're completely independent. And for me, that's probably one of the most core things about what we do, is we want to be that pulse of the industry, allow people to benchmark themselves against that industry, and ultimately help the industry become better. Super exciting.
Yeah, I can imagine. How does this benchmarking exactly work? I guess me as a client, I don't want my data to be reviewed by my competition. Yeah. So how do you approach this?
So are you sure? So we've got as I said before, so me as Nick Limited will never be able to see David Limited business. We'll never off that. So the comparisons would be down to benchmarking down from an MCC level, and we will always create an anonymized pool of data. So you'll never be able to kind of go, right, show me David's business now. won't be in there. Won't be able to kind of reverse that back out. But that data is important. Okay, yeah, there's MCC level data, there's issuer stuff. So it's kind of broad-based benchmarking, but it allows you to get that comparative knowledge of what's good and what's working within the market.
Yeah.
And as we kind of build it, so it talked about predictive models as well. So what's that question is, okay, I'm going to start trading in the US. It's never been a market I targeted. So what does good look like over there? What acquirers for my type of business and my type of business model should I look to work with? That's where these insights and this anonymized data helps us, give you that clarity of, okay, well, this has worked, this hasn't worked. This is what you could expect from fraud and chargeback rates. This is what you can expect from an optimization piece. So you can then start to really build that business case of how is this going to work, and is it actually going to drive a return on investment for my business?
And it might also be an interesting, it might create interesting insights for acquirers, right? Or PSPs, to measure their own performance.
Yeah, completely agree. And look, my background, having worked at a number of acquirers, exactly that would be, quite often we want to know how we perform. And we get some loose data from some of the schemes, and we can kind of get a little bit of kind of clarity, but we could never go, okay, right down to an issue level. Are we as good as our competition? And that's something that would have been super powerful to me, to be able to go and to say, right, but also, nobody's perfect. So how do I use that data to bring myself up? I don't think this is necessarily a finger pointing exercise.
No,
it's more about how do we help people become better? And at the end of the day, it's consumers and merchants that often get the bad deal in acquiring and stuff. They're the ones that, for all the costs and things like that, actually want to get something back out of this. And me as a consumer, if my payment goes through every time, first time, my billing works all the time, I'd have a consistency of service. If I'm paying for something, that's the most important thing that we want to achieve for our customers.
So I am a new customer of Unetix, and I'm keen to understand where I can improve and how my data looks like. This is super complex, right? So where to start? How do you help me as a new customer to understand where I can optimize, where I can improve, how my data looks like?
Unetix.ai is your starting point. Come to the website, sign up. You link your data sources, we ingest that. That's first stage. You start to get that clarity view. So there's a suite of dashboards there. Instantly, you'll be able to start seeing the key metrics that we drive or are driving the business. Dashboards are full customizable. There's things that you don't want to see on there. You take those off. But we're focusing on really those financial performance metrics to start with. We'll then start to look at and we've got compliance metrics, so fraud and chargebacks and operations and things what are driving that as well. You then start to look at the optimization starts. So then we start to look at a little bit more of what's actually happening, what's driving that, where are the spikes, what countries work best, what's happening within that. So really getting into those deeper details. What are my top declines? What are my lower declines? What are the issues that potentially work for me and are not working for me? So really helping people to understand that, but in a very simple way. And then we give you a comparative view as well. So if you've got multiple business units, a simple way to start looking at how those are kind of going across that, and then that benchmarking aligned to that as well. That's that kind of first phase that we would start to work with anyone. Then it's starting to use those, the analytical and AI insights, which is buzzword at the moment. And I know a lot of people kind of on the bandwagon, but we're deploying some very kind of sophisticated ways of understanding that data to be able to forecast and then model in the future. So it's understanding, okay, well, what does your data say about what you're doing at the moment? And what does that mean for you as you move forward in the future? And providing you a way to understand that, alerts, notifications. If something happens, you want to know about it quickly so you can make a decision. And I think that's often been one of the challenges of the historical data view is you're always doing something as a reactionary thing to what the data said. I've had this happen. What do I do about it? Whereas where Unetix comes in is being able to go on that predictive view. Based on this data, we see there's a really high probability of this potentially happening. And therefore you can be on the front foot if it ever does happen, but also mitigate around, potentially what would happen there. Back to, it could be we've seen a spike in fraud for certain issuers in certain countries. You'd want to know about that specifically. And you might make the decision of, at this stage, is that what I want to accept? Yeah.
You mean even if it didn't happen within your transaction?
Yeah, within your transaction, or if we're seeing this within this anonymized pool at that stage.
Yeah.
So, that's the bit of being able to learn from a wider data pool, which I think is what the unique part of the proposition is.
Yeah.
Because, it's been missing in the market of, and I've always, it's a good analogy when you look at it where, historically I've done a lot of work with some of the football clubs in the UK. And you'd think they were all arch enemies because they are on the pitch, but off the pitch, no, they're all businesses.
Yeah.
And why would I buy a Man United shirt if I was a Man City fan, sort of thing. So actually, there's a real good sort of shared knowledge and learning within that industry because they only compete on the pitch, they don't compete off it. So actually helping them grow and things like that as well. And for me, that's kind of one of those core kind of components of what we're looking to do is, okay, I may be your competitor, but actually we can both learn and win together to grow our businesses and operate better and cut our costs and be more efficient in what we do by a shared learning process.
To what extent is VAMP a component of Unetix being launched?
Obviously, something that's very front of mind at the moment, and we're a couple of months in since the first kind of introduction of it in October. So 100%. There's we have a VAMP calculation in there, and we're able to give you that near instantly as you sign up. But what we're also able to do is track that against. Okay, well, we know it changes in April. So what are you tracking like in there? So being able to see those metrics instantly side by side. But what we're also then looking at, in that predictive model, well, where are you going? So where would you be in April?
Yeah.
Are you going to be on the right level? Are you going up or are you going down based on the predictive element of the data? Which is, for me, is super interesting. And then you start to dig into those components and go, okay, but what's driving that? What is it? What are those metrics that are actually driving my ratio? And is it a certain country? Is it a certain product? Is it a certain issuer? Is it a currency that's doing something? Like, it's the granularity starts to get, and that's where we'll help merchants to really understand what is driving their business. And of course, look, we know it will change again.
Yep.
So instantly you can start to kind of look at it and go, right, here you go. New calculation comes in, and we're sure our friends at MasterCard will come along with something similar or a revamp of what they do. So we will create those calculations and that ability for merchants to be able to just go, so tell me what my data says now, rather than having to go through this bespoke calculation process internally. We'll do it once. It's ready for everyone.
Yeah. So am I right that you're not only adding insights, but actually also pointing the customer into what he or she should look at?
Yeah.
Let's take MCC as the example you gave before. It might be a too basic example, but yes, maybe if I have a different MCC, I would be able to get better approvals. But the question before that is, how do I know that I should even look at MCC?
Yeah.
So how do you help a customer to look at the right parameters?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't, as we know, you can't just change MCC.
No, that's probably maybe a wrong example, but there are many data points, right?
Yeah, and I think and that's it. It's being able to look at it in a concise and clear way to say, well, what is driving this? And we all know, especially on the MCC level, there can sometimes be 3 or 4 MCCs that certain businesses can fall into, especially in some of the more higher margin businesses and things like that as well. So we could look at that and then you'd be able to say, well, okay, well, how's that working? But sometimes it's not purely just an MCC. It could be an MCC and an acquirer combination. Or it can be an MCC and an issuer combination. So it's giving visibility and insights into, yes, my data, but also that anonymized benchmarking pool to be able to say, well, what is good and what is working? And if I change and I go down that route, will it actually benefit me? Or do I think there will be limited? And sometimes it might not even be the acceptance that's the thing. It can then be later in the food chain or that life cycle of the transaction. It could be that you then start to see an increased fraud because of the MCC, which then leads to an increased chargeback. So there's never that silver bullet, but again, it's providing the tools to be able to identify and understand that in there as well, and that will support the customers with that. I mean, the idea is starts to become that automotive kind of process, AI and being able to engage with it, and you'll be able to ask questions into there, and those sorts of kind of chat GTP experience will come. But also sometimes actually you're going to want to talk to a person with the knowledge, because the thing that often makes these things, you can have all the data capability in there, but it's that real life knowledge from the payments people that know how the industry works, which is a differentiator.
So I'm a merchant and I've watched this podcast and I'm like, okay, I wanna improve my data visibility, but I have no idea where to start. Please help me.
Okay. Well, first thing I'd say, visit Unetix.ai and have a look. But if without the kind of the selfless plug there, I'd probably take it back a level and I'd say let's start by asking questions. I mean, I think that's where we've a lot of the business and where we've come from is not accepting bad as an example or always the correct outcome. So ask better questions. Don't accept the reports that you're given. Dig into what they mean. And look to understand that performance level of what is driving my business, and how do I get better, and what are those components that ultimately are causing challenges within my business, whether that be cost, whether that be acceptance, whether that be fraud or chargebacks. Look at those individual bits and understand what the heartbeat is of your business and what's driving that. That would be my advice. And then what you also need to look as and understand, and one of the bits where I feel we can really help is start to get people what is good. So helping them understand, well, if it's 70% or is it 60%, what is good for my market and my vertical and the way that I operate. So then you've got something to either pat yourself on the back for, or aspire to.
Is there any misconception about payments data you always hear, but it's simply not true?
I mean, look, I think the biggest misconception of the payment data is just the plumbing. It's just that back office thing. It's the piece at the end where we finance, reconcile, and we just make sure that the pounds and pence match up with what comes in. And I think with people that kind of take that approach are definitely missing a massive trick. That, as I've mentioned several times, there's a real large transactional life cycle. There's so many components where you can influence performance and growth within the business, and that's where I think you're missing a trick if you're not looking at it from a payments intelligence point of view, and you're just looking at that end piece of data. For me, it's payment intelligence. For me, it's not a nice to have now. I think it's integral for anyone who's taking their business seriously and wants to grow and understand what the mechanisms driving their organization.
Interesting. I find this topic very interesting. There's no time, but I found today also very interesting. So thank you for being with us here today.
Pleasure, as always. Enjoyed it.
Thanks. If you have watched or listened, thanks for your time. Feel free to check out unetix.ai or reach out to us on LinkedIn or at eflow.com. Until next time.